Hello, everyone. It's such a pleasure to say hello to our guest tonight, Dr. Betty Edwards. Betty is in her beautiful home in California. Hello, Betty. Can you see me? Can you see everyone in the room?
Yes, I've seen everyone, and I see you, Paola.
Okay. Thank you so much for saying yes to do this. As you can
Oh, it's
see,
my pleasure.
we are, just a lovely group of friends who are all your fans. I think you know that you have touched so many lives in your wonderful career and with your wonderful book, Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain. And what I think everyone in this room would love to know is how did that book come about? And how did you realize that actually we have to be working on the right side of the brain to let our creativity flow?
Heavens, that's a big question. The book was published such a long time ago, in 1969, actually, and was the result of a lot of very fortunate events. First of all, the discoveries by Roger Sperry at, at Caltech in Pasadena of the split brain characteristics. And when I read that research, I said to myself, that must be it. When you're drawing, you're switching to another part of the brain. And I was so intrigued by that thought that I actually did the research. I was in the doctoral program at UCLA, and the book was a result of that aha, that when you're drawing, you're making a shift to another part of the brain than the part that we usually use, which is mainly the verbal part. So we are shifting from the verbal, sequential, uh, 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 special parts of the brain to the visual, perceptual, global part of the brain. It's a wordless task. Those of you who draw know that are you aware that you lose language? If someone speaks to you, you don't process the words and you say, oh, what did you say? I was drawing. And it's a different experience, and it's a very pleasurable experience, as I'm sure you've all experienced. But are we asking questions? Uh,
Betty, I think
Paula?
if you would you mind, some of the people in the room are not everyone is the artist here. Many of them are in my art history class, so they're really just art lovers. Would you be kind to maybe tell us what is the differences between our right brain and our left brain?
Well, the verbal brain. Oh, let's do first what is drawing. In my book and in my research, it turns out that in order to learn to draw, you need to understand 5 skills. Only 5. It's not an endless procedure, actually. So it's the first is the perception of edges, where one thing ends and another thing begins. Next, the perception of spaces, which we call negative spaces. Third, the perception of lights and of relationships, of proportion and perspective. And fourth, the perception of lights and shadows, which creates the illusion of the third dimension. And finally, the perception of the whole, which in my book I just called the Gestalt, meaning how we perceive not the parts really at the end, but the whole thing. No, the other half of the brain has its skills for reading. And interestingly, they're also listed by reading specialists as 5 skills. So there's phonics, phonetics, vocabulary, fluency, which I actually disagree with, and comprehension. Fluency, I think, is a result of learning to read and not a basic skill. But curiously, reading experts list fluency as a basic skill. And I think this is to the great distress of a lot of kids who, are not fluent in the beginning. And the kids who are fluent are the ones who get the A's in reading. So I think actually the 4th reading skill should be syntax, how to construct sentences with verb, subject, verb, and object. But at any rate, by spelling out these 5 relatively simple skills, it turns out that people can learn to draw very readily. It isn't a lifelong process, just as learning to read is not a lifelong process. You learn to read as quickly as possible and then get on with it. And with the methods that I developed, you learn to draw in 5 days, and then you get on with it. And that has, I think, changed the way we think about artistic ability. Drawing is something that I believe everybody can learn, and everyone can learn it quickly, the basic skills, and then get on to the fun part of painting and whatever it brings on for you, just as we treat reading. So that was the main accomplishment, I think, of the book. And to my great surprise, people have responded to that, and the book is still in print, which is, amazing in itself. It's been 40 years or so. So that is the basic story of how it came about.
Betty, it seems to me that your book is almost like the medieval version of the Golden Legend, which was the book, all of the lives of the saints that was printed in every country, and everyone had their own version of it. I have, the newest book, and what really clearly comes out of it in the beginning is that, in a way, the children in our modern day education are quite cheated by the educational system. And you say something really interesting, that if we do pay attention to children and give them a chance to actually have these artistic exercises, that they might end up starving artists, and who wants that? So
Yeah.
these kids are literally cheated out of possibilities of one side of their brain. I mean, is that true?
Yes, my true ambition is to see drawing reinstated in especially since I live here, the American school system. The fact is right now that they're in education, they are eliminating all of the art classes, the
Yes.
drawing classes. and many of the music classes and the arts are just disappearing. And in the meantime, while this is happening, the reading scores here are going down and down. The average score for 8th grade here is 35%, at 35% of reading ability, which is a disaster. And so my hope is to reinstate the arts into, that educationalists will do this, reinstate arts and bring the powerful right hemisphere to bear on both reading and art, and help our kids to excel in schools. I think it will be a key factor, but it's not happening. They're not listening to me. Surprise, surprise.
Well, I think you do have the way to reach millions of people. So hopefully this message will, keep going. It will be a little ripple that will, have its big effect.
Yes. Well, the point that you made about parents being afraid that their kids will end up as starving artists, I think is a key point, because that seems to be the sense people have, that if you love art and if you become an art major, the danger is you'll never make a living. But we don't teach reading for that in that way. We teach it for all skills, all specializations, and so on. And we want every kid to learn to read, no matter what their ultimate career is. And we should regard art in the same way. Some will become artists, a few, but the culture doesn't support the artists we have, so most of them will not. But the effect on learning, I think, would be enormous, just enormous.
Yes. Even great Michelangelo, his own father was not really excited to have his son go into the world of arts, because the Michelangelo's family, they were all notaries. So very, almost like a lawyer in our time, so very educated, and generations of the Buonarrotis were actually notaries. So for Michelangelo to take this artistic path was something that was not easy and not understood, from his father. So I guess this idea of the starving artist goes back, it's not something that is modern to us, but it goes back to the centuries. Um, but Betty, how did you come up then this idea of the dominant eye, and how does that come on, and when?
Well, this came actually in our classes. uh, my son and I and our other teachers demonstrate, and we teach the on the fifth day. On the fourth day, they do a profile portrait of another student, and on the fifth day, our students do a self-portrait. And I noticed, without it really registering, I think, that the eyes in these self-portraits, uh, in each drawing, the eyes were different. That one eye was alert, looking out. The other eye would be somewhat dreamy, maybe smudged a bit, certainly not the center of interest. And I would notice this over and over. Um, I then sort of stumbled across the concept of dominant and subdominant eyes. And so I sort of realized that that was what was going on. And later, then, if I asked students about this, they would say, Well, I just wasn't interested in that eye. And so this seemed to be a kind of subconscious activity that was going on. Emphasis on one eye, almost always the right eye, and less emphasis on even an almost obscuring of the other eye, which turns out to be the subdominant eye. I did the research on this subject, and sure enough, there it was, the dominant and subdominant eyes being researched. Researchers still don't know exactly what it means in terms of personality, just as left-handedness is still what it means to be left-handed as opposed to right-handed is still uncertain. So in my book, I take it in the book on this subject, I take a sort of flyer at it myself, guessing what it means. But the research still needs to be done. So that's how it all came about. And then I got so interested in the subject that one day I decided to write a book about it. There you are. Now we have the book.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's out in Great Britain and in the US. And I know you also have an Italian publisher.
Yes, we do. Yeah, the Italian publisher of the drawing book is publishing the book, which is
Okay.
great.
Incredible. So, Betty, why is it important for us to figure out our dominant eye? And how can it help us in communicating with others? How can it help us in our lives to know this?
Yes, well, that's a big question. Um, it is true that we have our students, those of you who may have read the book know that we ask our students to do a pre-instruction self-portrait. The reason being that our students forget where they started, which is really quite primitive, often, say around maybe sixth grade or something like that. And we don't talk about the drawing, we just put them away and save them for the last day. But we really need to do that because at the end of 5 days, they have totally forgotten what their drawing was like before they took the class. So in those pre-instruction drawings, the eyes are usually symmetrical. In the post-instruction drawings, the eyes are no longer symmetrical. There is almost always, in fact, there is a dominant eye and a subdominant eye. And that was really what caught my attention.
So basically, in the beginning, they wouldn't even realize that the eyes would be completely
Apparently not. And often, even friends of mine who are highly educated, who may be highly educated, if I say to them, which is your dominant eye? They say, oh, I don't know. How can you tell? Or they'll say, what do you mean by dominant eye? So this, and I'm wondering among your audience, how many are aware of, have been aware of a dominant eye? That would be interesting. Can you run a quick little survey?
You know what? Let's do it at the end. We will have them to think about this question because I'm afraid that if we start with questions that now, we will never end. But we have some really
Okay, well, let me show them how to find out right now.
okay.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So for all of you, if you close one eye, extend your arm, and extend your forefinger and point to something across the room, some small object, a window latch, or a doorknob is always good. Close one eye and point. Leave your finger right there. Now switch eyes. And you'll find that the finger is no longer on the target. All right?
Yes.
The eye you had opened first is your dominant eye. Okay, everyone clear on that?
Yes, I see everyone smiling and nodding.
Why is it the dominant eye?
It is the dominant eye because it's more closely, this is the supposition. It is the dominant eye because it is more closely connected to the verbal, most often the left hemisphere. It's most closely connected to the hemisphere that handles language mostly.
So whichever one we choose first, just by that is
the dominant eye.
Okay, just right. Without thinking about
it. And if you are left-eyed, your finger will have moved to the. If you are left-eyed, your finger will have moved to the right. If you are right-eyed, the finger will move to the left. Now, people who do archery and shooting, target shooting, that sort of thing, those people are aware of this because, as you saw, your aim was no longer correct with the subdominant eye. So they have to adjust their techniques of shooting or archery or whatever in order to become good marksmen, because you're way off, if you aim with the quote wrong eye.
Yes. Betty, what do you think if we show some images?
Yes, we could do that.
Would it be okay?
Are there questions? There may be questions. Let's see if there are questions.
Okay.
Any more questions?
I see some questions coming in, but maybe we can address them at the end. But maybe if you just have some burning question right now, because I think it will be good to see images as well. And then we can just open up the room to everyone. If that's okay?
Yes, whatever. So we proceed then.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Just because I think we have some really, really cool images for people to see. And so let's use our chance, and then we will promise we will answer all the questions. So Betty, you tell me if you see the images popping up on the screen, okay?
Yes.
Betty, do you see them?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So here are both of your books, which are both quite incredible. So this is the first image.
Let's go back to the image of the new book.
Okay.
This drawing it's an old drawing, a self-portrait that I drew, I don't know, 4 decades ago, I think. And I had kept it for various reasons. But the eye, my dominant eye is my right eye. And this drawing is a very good illustration of a dominant eye. And also this, in this drawing, this eye tracks, which is sometimes you get lucky and you get all the moves right. in a drawing, and the eye will track.
Betty, what does that mean exactly? What does it mean?
Well, it
Track
means
the eye?
that if you move to one side, the eye will seem to follow you. If you move to the other side, the eye will follow you that way, and so on. It's a rare occurrence in a work of art, and a very fortuitous occurrence, I must say. But for this book, this drawing seemed to me to be appropriate. In the Da Vinci drawing of the angel, the subdominant eye is the angel's left eye, the one at the right of the book. And this is an interesting aspect of male artists' drawings of beautiful young females, that they often put the subdominant eye as the leading eye because it is less aggressive. If you look at the dominant eye, which is the eye on the far side of the face in Da Vinci's drawing, you'll see that it looks directly at you in a quite almost harsh way, whereas the left eye, the subdominant eye, is meltingly soft and yielding and dreamy and unchallenging. And you will see this over and over again. I've included several in my book of works of art by famous artists, of beautiful male artists, models.
Yeah.
So this, and I never noticed this, but in fact, what I meant to say, I now understand this. Da Vinci was portraying in his angel a complete person.
Incredible.
It's absolutely astounding, you know, that the whole personality is there.
So do you think he would have
Because of
had a
the eye.
model? Do you think he would have had a model in front of him, Betty?
Oh, yes, I absolutely believe he did. Yes.
Wow. Wow.
And, you know, the ancients had sayings about this. The face is the portrait of the mind, and the eyes reveal the
soul.
informer of the mind. The face reveals the eye. Let me find a couple of those sayings. The face is the portrait of the mind with the eyes as its interpreter. The face is the portrait of the mind and the eyes its informer. So Da Vinci in this drawing has revealed the role of the eyes, which is to show us the whole mind. The most common saying of this kind is, the eyes are the windows to the soul.
Yeah, so true.
And they are different.
Yeah, yeah. Betty, should we move on with the images?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay.
Oh, yes. In my book, I make the point that prehistoric humans were making realistic drawings 35,000 and more years ago. And human beings are no longer able to do these drawings. This skill, which was apparently inherent originally, is now lost almost. And that's what I'm trying to bring back, I guess. But it's quite amazing to look at these drawings. No one understands how the cave people did these drawings. An ordinary person today would be hard put to do anything near this skill level.
True.
And it became lost. Language dominated. These drawings led to drawing through pictographs and the whole range of the development of language. But now the skill itself has dropped out, unfortunately. We'd like to bring it back. We think it's important. If it was so important for cave people who had no written language whatsoever, that cave people could do these artists in dark caves without a model in front of them. They couldn't drag a mammoth into the cave. That they could retain this image from the outside, and then in these dark caves create these images is astounding, just astounding. In fact, for years and years, people denied that they were done by the cave people, but that has been proven over and over again. But we've lost this skill.
Betty, incredibly, I mean, after everything that we do today is digital and it disappears in 24 hours. So 35,000 years from now, there will be nothing left by us. There'll be no cave drawings. There'll be nothing to prove that we existed here. So,
well, one encouraging thing is that there are emojis and and we have Zoom now. We have, things are becoming much more visual. We may be going back to drawing. Who knows?
yes. Maybe definitely the quarantine in Italy, which was really hard. Our lockdown was through lockdown, brought artists in everyone. I mean, including me. I started doing my own drawings, but I will show them later, okay? Because
yes,
it's embarrassing. Should we go to the next one? Next.
Yes. Oh yes, this is. This business about dominant I, when you talk with someone face to face, you subconsciously are searching for the other person's dominant I. And there, of human beings, 65% are right-eyed and 35% are left-eyed. If you are left-eyed, you're sort of in a minority, and you want the person facing you to look into your dominant eye. But if you are left-eye dominant, and the person is looking into your right eye, you have to find some way to get that person to look into the eye that's handling the language, the dominant eye. And so people have all of these kind of odd ways of doing that. One way is to put a hand over one eye to get the, I automatically cover my left eye, so my right eye is available. But if you are left-eyed, you would be covering your right eye, so the person will look into your dominant eye. And during the 40s, there was this odd hairstyle, which has reappeared today, where Hollywood female actresses actually use this hairdo apparently to cover the subdominant eye, to get the person, in this case, to look into, what was her name? Oh, Veronica Lake. to get people to look into her dominant left eye. This is very funny.
Yes, absolutely incredible. Should we move on?
Yes,
Okay. We all know this man.
we all know this man, and he is clearly right-eyed. All of Rembrandt's self-portraits, drawings, paintings are really quite clear on this. And you'll notice that the eyebrow over his left eye is pulled forward, almost like an arrow pointing to the dominant eye.
Mm-hmm.
People want you to address your dominant eye. That's the eye that's linked to words. And Rembrandt in his painting, I mean, it couldn't be more clear as in this painting. Any questions
have
about
another one
any of
by
this?
him.
And another of Rembrandt's self-portraits when he was much older. And again, here you can see that eyebrow pulled forward, forming an arrow that points to the dominant eye.
So our own eyebrows actually do give us a direction really
Yes,
to look at.
definitely, right.
And you make a really good point in your book where you say the older the people are, the more of that arrow effect actually happens as we age.
Absolutely. Can't you see it in me? Okay, go on. And this is a set of etchings that Rembrandt did, part of a set of etchings that Rembrandt did when he was a young man. He was, it's absolutely marvelous, this set. And he was apparently practicing facial expressions. This one with narrowed eyes. And the next one, shall we show the next one, Paola? And this one with widened eyes. And quite interestingly, some modern researchers have done an extensive research on eye expression and have discovered that the most frequent two expressions, eye expressions, are widened eyes and narrowed eyes. And here Rembrandt in 40, 50 date, we don't know. I think the 16th century.
1600, yes, 1600s.
1600s was practicing these two expressions, which are later found by researchers to be the most predominant, and they express separate feelings. The widened eyes express anger, shock, surprise, feelings such as that. And if you go back to the narrowed eyes express suspicion, anger, resentment, mostly negative expressions. And quite interestingly, those of you who are interested in American politics, you will notice that our president has consistently narrowed eyes, expressing all those negative emotions, and are the head of our, what's his name? The head of the, yeah. Anyway, another politician, a second major politician has widened eyes. What is this? I can't remember it either.
Adam Schiff.
Adam Schiff, right? He has widened eyes. These two major expressions.
You know, I
But
think,
Rembrandt, genius that he was, found this, early on.
yes, the dates for these are 1631, and you make a really good
Ah,
point in your book, and you say that these are actually about 2 inches, 2 inches by 2. They're
Isn't
so
it
small.
astounding? Isn't it astounding?
Yes.
Yeah.
To do these etchings, I mean, just the skill needed to do this, and you can really clearly see his dominant right eye. I mean, even on this tiny
Yes.
little postage stamp, it comes out clearly.
Isn't it amazing? Thomas Hoving, a curator, director of the Met,
Hmm.
once said that these etchings are the single most amazing etchings of their kind.
Yes, yes. I think we have some other examples.
Uh-huh.
Here is Hopper.
Yes, here we have the Hopper, Edward Hopper, um, and often we've talked about male artists and how they handle female eyedness, and often with male artists, as here in the Hopper, the subdominant eye is simply left off.
Yes,
Uh, there, if you even closely examine, there's almost nothing there. He is clearly right-eyed and is clearly wants his viewers to know it and to address the dominant eye.
yes,
And
incredible.
you'll find this more if you visit the museums, you'll find this often with male artists. So here we have the Van Eyck. This is one of the first self-portraits that was ever made, mainly because the good mirrors were not available until Van Eyck's time. And here this is an instance where it's more difficult. And I'm guessing that he is right eye dominant and that the left eye, it's an amazing portrait, the left eye is sort of questioning the viewer, as though he calls this painting. I don't know if we can find it.
He actually, portrait of a man, or self-portrait, but he does sign it in a very unusual way, and he
Yeah,
says, "This is the best I can do," right?
yeah, this is the best I can do. And that eye that's looking, his left eye looks as though it's asking, this is my best shot, what's yours?
Yes.
To me.
And to think, that Jan van Eyck actually did this in early 1400s, probably, 1433. You do make a really good point about the invention of the mirror
Yes,
and how it would help them.
there were mirrors, but they were not very good. They were made of metal, perhaps polished metal, and the surface would be uneven. So there were no good mirrors for creating self-portraits until after 1400. And this was the start of that whole genre of paintings.
Yes. And how much power and how much skill in that beautiful red turban.
Yes, it's sometimes Van Eyck's title for the portrait was Portrait of a Man, but the title has been changed late by other people, the Portrait of a Man in a Red Turban, because it's so spectacular. Thinking was that that Van Eyck was perhaps advertising his painting skill by that
Of course.
fabulous turban.
Yes. And then about maybe 60 years later, we have this one.
Oh,
Sure.
this painting, right. Yeah, this is the Dürer self-portrait. He was about 28 when he painted this painting. It was unusual as the self-portraits of that age were almost always three-quarter views, not full. And he presents this portrait with a title. Can you read that title, Annie?
It is
Self-portrait. It's self-portrait at 28. So he even tells us on the right, he actually writes that he's 28 years old, and he gives us
28 years old. And he's the inscription, the title of the portrait was, I, Albert Dürer of Nuremberg, painted myself thus with undying colors, meaning everlasting colors, at the age of 28. So he's sort of announcing this painting. He looks at the viewer straight on. I think that he is right eye dominant, but I'm not sure of that. I think so because the eyebrow over the left eye is pulled forward, but the right eye is quite arresting, really, as well. So I'm uncertain about that. But the painting itself is this fantastic painting. As someone said about it, that was Hoving, right? That was
the single most arrogant, annoying, and gorgeous.
Yeah, he called it the single most arrogant and annoying and gorgeous painting ever created. And recently, someone has written here in the States a wonderful analysis of this painting, if you can get a hold of it.
He almost looks like Christ in Blessing, or a saint.
He must have had a pretty high opinion of himself. The position of the hand is thought to be a secret message to somebody. And if you try that position with your own hand, it's very, very difficult to take that position.
Yes. And it is almost like at the level of heart, but it's a little bit lower than the heart, right?
Yes, there apparently is a lot of secret meanings in this painting, which would be consistent with Dürer.
Yes. Let's go to the next one.
Oh, the Vermeer, which is a gorgeous painting. And in this one, again, you see this softening of the subdominant eye, the left eye, the eye nearest to us, and the direct look. If you can cover on your own screen, cover one eye and then the other, you'll see how sharply they are different one from another. So we have here this meltingly soft, compliant looking, almost plaintive eye, and on the opposite side, the dominant eye, the one that says, you know, who are you? What about you?
Incredible.
I think a clear illustration. This is knowing about dominant eyes would make it great fun to go to the museums and look at portraits and self-portraits just from this standpoint.
Yes, it's very true. And I think this will definitely change at least my way, at looking at portraits. I think we have two more images. This is the beautiful one with which you end your book. It is a,
Well, yes, I mean, we all bow down in front of this drawing. It's a charcoal drawing. Um, Michelangelo, this is the only portrait that he drew. Um, and he was extremely choosy about his models. And here again, we see this enormous difference in the eyes. It makes me think that the Renaissance artists were much more aware of this eye difference than we are today. But this is such a beautiful drawing, absolutely exquisite drawing,
yeah.
and a great illustration of the subject of my book.
Andrea Coratesi was really a beloved student by Michelangelo, and I think there's even some letters in which Andrea refers to Michelangelo as the most beloved father. So they had this definitely interesting relationship between them. And I saw it at the Metropolitan Museum, the beautiful exhibition a few years ago, and I just couldn't peel myself away from it. I mean, it's just mesmerizing. That instant in which he caught him, I think, is just incredible.
Oh yes, it's an exquisite drawing, exquisite.
And I think we have one more, which is the one you have on the back of your book.
Yes, and the one on the cover of the drawing book. Yeah, I absolutely fell in love with this painting when I was a young art student. It has always been the the ideal drawing in my mind. And because of this new interest in this new book, it's I find it even more fascinating all the time. Uh, if you try to copy this drawing, good luck. It's seemingly simple, but it is enormously complicated, and clearly exquisite, just exquisite.
Yes, and
And it really is anchored. Had Leonardo not made the eyes so different, I feel sure it would not hold one's attention for 40 years, as this drawing has with me.
it is interesting, that he used this as the underdrawing for the Madonna of the Rocks, the Virgin of the Rocks. But then
Yes,
his version is very different. I mean, what he came up with in the final painting was very different than what he started with here.
yes, it's quite different, I think, almost a different image.
Yes,
But it is possible that you only got this particular image once, you know.
yes. Betty, I think these are all the images we had. What I, if you don't mind, I wanted to end with this quote. And you say in a book, just as learning how to read never harms, but always helps, learning to draw never harms, it always helps. Um, Tell us more about this, and why should all of us that are now listening to you pick up a pen and a pencil and do some drawing right today?
Well, I do believe that drawing helps us to tap into the right hemisphere, which, as we all know, it has been downgraded forever almost, even in antiquity, and certainly in modern times. In the early stages of brain hemisphere research, the left hemisphere was regarded as a good hemisphere, the valuable one. And the, the fact is, the right hemisphere was regarded as a sort of spare, not much use for anything. But we now know different. And I think that drawing is a direct way into the right hemisphere. It's pleasurable. You get the drawing as a result, a bonus as a result, and makes you makes one more familiar with one's whole brain, which can never be a bad thing in my view. So since it's a simple procedure and it doesn't cost anything and it's satisfying, I think it would be a good idea if we brought drawing back into the schools and helped our children to learn about that part of their brain, to take advantage of the abilities of that part of the brain, because they are important. The right hemisphere helps us to see what's going on. And we need a lot of that right now.
Betty, when we talked about our interview, you said something really incredible. You said that the left side of our brain is always afraid that if we go to the right, we will never come back.
Yes, I do. I actually do believe that. And we've had students actually who panic, come into the class wanting to learn to draw, are finally able to make that shift to the right hemisphere and suddenly panic, which is, I think, is their left hemisphere saying, if you get over there too long, you won't be able to get back to me. So I do think there is, and I think that has something to do with the disparagement of art classes and so on. Yes, but in my view, it's all good. We need to be able to see the forest for the trees, to see how things go together or don't go together, to be able to determine to recognize what is not named, but what is seen. And those things are really important, I think.
Yes. Betty, you know, I think we can talk about this for hours. You're just a wealth of knowledge and a lifetime of experience of teaching people how to draw. I do believe we have a lot of, we have a lot of questions in the chat. I see people are asking questions. So shall we go and see what they want to know? Is that okay?
Oh, yes, of course.
Okay, so let me see. I'm gonna just try to go up. Okay. Okay. So Paige, who is an art teacher, said, I use a cognitive right brain, left brain quiz with my students, with my Art 1 students, to introduce drawing from the right side of the brain. I get the students to illustrate their brains with characteristics or tendencies of both sides. All of my students have benefited so much from Dr. Edwards' information and exercises. I love that Betty and Aristotle are on the same page. They should never think without a mental picture. What do you think about this, Betty?
Well, I think that's a wonderful quote. Because that brings the right hemisphere into the game. And we need to do that, much more of that. Language dominates. Language dominates, unfortunately. We need it, but it can do a lot of harm. Witness current
In the studio,
history.
when I use your information, I don't allow the students to talk, and we talk and we listen to music, but while we're doing our drawing exercises, because I tell them they're trying to get into the zone, and I don't allow them to talk. They have to use hand sharpeners, all different things like that. And you know, when we look at both sides of the brain and the tendencies, I ask them, our school at least, tends to teach to which side? And school tends to teach to the left side of the brain.
Yes.
And so I kind of tell them that the left side's a bully. You know, I teach middle schoolers, so you can, and that we need to wake up that right side.
Good for you. Good for you. Are your students responding to that?
You at the end of day one, we do so many exercises, and then they do a big drawing from observation. At the end of day one, you know, I'll say, who sees improvement? And they are.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Learning to draw is not, it's learning to see. You know, it's not learning to draw. It's learning
That's right. That's exactly right. If you can see, you can draw. You don't have to learn to draw. You have to learn to see.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Oh, well, thank you for telling me that. That is, and I've experienced that in a classroom. I know it happens. And you're doing nothing but good for those kids. And I'm sure they love you for it.
Well, you know, the thing with COVID right now, like you were saying, we're losing so many of our arts, and they'll come back and they won't have done any of the art assignments because I'm not a core class, but I really think it helps them. I think of it as the art of life and not just art in the studio. And so I really think it helps them in everything.
Excellent. You're doing nothing but good for those kids.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hey, you have received a special blessing.
I'm
yes.
chills.
Diana Austin is asking, does cursive handwriting help to develop ability to draw?
Oh, that is a good question, because I'm heartbroken to see cursive writing dropping out. Kids are printing, or they're just using their computers now. I think it's quite terrible. And I do believe it actually is some research. Where is the question?
I don't know. Who asked the question, Pally?
Well, it might have been just to me. I apologize.
Well, no, I was asking, it's me that asked.
Oh, Doris, okay. Yes, you're absolutely right. There is some research that's showing that students who take handwritten notes remember lectures and so on ever so much better than taking notes by computer or any other way, or not taking notes at all. And in my view, handwriting is one of the keys, because it is connected to the right brain, is one of the keys to gaining access to the right brain. So absolutely, and here again, you're doing nothing but good for those kids by teaching them cursive writing. Are they responding to it? Do they like it?
I'm not a teacher. I love drawing. That's one of my passions. But I always wondered, I was questioning when they actually started dropping cursive writing, handwriting, and I couldn't believe it because it's not only drawing, would it be also just the whole concept of hand and eye coordination?
Yes, it is,
It
exactly.
like sports?
Right, you're exactly right. And it's truly valuable. There are a few beginnings of recognizing that, but the kids have computers in the classrooms now. So that's going to be a tough fight. But you're leading the way, and good for you.
Betty, Sharon Lawrence said, Betty is a treasure. I'm so glad to be here with all of you.
Handwriting. That was Sharon Lawrence that said it.
Thank you, Betty. I mean, thank you for, Betty, we have to thank you for getting us all together. Paige is asking, by dominant eye, how does that manifest itself in the final drawing?
Where is she?
But she explained that a little bit further. Once I had asked, I was a little confused, but the illustrations palette that y'all shared, that I asked it, I jumped the gun, so.
Yes. Okay, Sarah says, if you ever use binoculars or fire a rifle, you quickly find out your dominant eye.
Yes, it's true. That is true, right.
Yeah, we did talk about this, yes. Alice Rose, got it, but it doesn't seem to be related to being left-handed. So I guess it doesn't really matter. Our eye dominance doesn't really connect with our left or right hand, correct?
No, it can be all over the place. You can be left-handed and right-eyed, right-handed and left-eyed. It is. There are percentages, which is probably the best way to understand that. 90% of human beings worldwide are right-handed. 10% are left-handed. The eyedness is different. 65% of human beings are right-eyed. 34% are left-eyed, and 1% have equal eye dominance.
Betty, incredible that both Leonardo and Michelangelo were left-handed.
Yes, that's right. Yes, that's true. Right.
And also, I wonder about Leonardo, who would write backwards. You know, you kind of wonder what was happening with his dominant eye, and if his specific way of writing was somehow telling us something about his brain.
Well, it was also telling us he was very secretive about his inventions and his insights and so on. But as I understand it, that was a deliberate
choice.
But a person, for an ordinary person, that would never occur to an ordinary person to write everything backwards.
Yeah.
If you pick up a pen in each hand and start to write with both hands, the opposite hand will follow, will have muscle memory, even though it is not writing. You can do it if you use, to pick up a pen with each hand, set it down and start to write. And the left hand will do what the right hand is doing and vice versa. So I've done that many times. I can write left-handed.
Going the same direction or
no,
backwards?
mirror image. I get the mirror image. Yes, you get the mirror image.
I see, right. Well,
just give it a try.
I am one of those people who have a slight right-left confusion, so that if I'm writing, someone else is driving the car, I will say turn left and point right. So whether I could ever do that, even that double writing, I don't know whether I could do it or not.
We've done that before where I get the kids to write with their non-dominant hand for a while.
Oh, mm-hmm.
And I'll put a paragraph up so they really don't have to think about what they're having to write. And I'll put a lyric of a song. And at first it's very difficult, but I've had adults in the room that have done it as well. And one she started writing in German, which was her original language. She didn't even realize she just started writing in German. So there was some type of reconnect, and we do go different places, I think, when we use our non-dominant differently, I think.
I think some psychologists are using this to connect to your inner child as well.
My brain resists it at all costs. I'm not sure I could do that. I'll try it. We'll see. If you have right-left confusion, it lasts forever, I'm afraid. Anyone here have right-left confusion? Yeah,
I do.
You know what I'm saying, right?
Yes, yes.
Right. There's some mess up in my brain somewhere.
I always assumed it was because I was left-handed.
Who's talking?
Oh, can you hear me?
Oh, yeah.
Because
because you were left-handed?
Yeah, I always thought it was because I was left-handed, and that's why I would always mix up right and left. But I turn left up here.
Right. Well, I don't think it's because you're left-handed, because I'm strongly right-handed and have the same problem. But yeah, there is, we all have little glitches in our brains over certain things. And that's one of mine. Fortunately, I don't have to tell right from left every day of the week.
I took a drawing class years ago, and my teacher, I'm an accountant, so I'm in the left brain.
Yes.
And she gave us this little exercise that you look at your thumb and then you try and draw your thumb without lifting your pen. And she said that would put you in your right brain. Does that?
Contour drawing.
I mean, and it worked.
Well, did she direct you to draw very slowly?
Yes.
Yes, right. Well, that is, yeah, right. That's something called contour drawing, which in the drawing book I make a quite big deal about, and it does slow you down. And left hemisphere is always in a rush. Get it done. Right hemisphere will slow way down. So if you slow your writing down, it shoves you into the left hemisphere. Says, why are you doing this? Too slow. I'm out of it. Then that allows you to move into the right hemisphere, and there you are. So that's a quite good exercise.
Hi, Dr. Edwards. I teach art to sixth graders and older in Toledo, Ohio. And your book was the reason that I decided to teach art, because I was somebody who had figured out how to do art early, but didn't think it was teachable. And I saw your book when I was 18 years old and realized, oh, you actually can teach this. So that's why I'm an art teacher. And like the other middle school art teacher who spoke, I also talk about kind of the left brain as being an older sibling, like a bossy older sibling who knows how to do some things, so it assumes it knows how to do everything, and shoves the left one, the younger one aside
all the time.
And they relate to that. Some of them have older siblings, and they're like, yes, it is like that. So, very effective. Sixth grade, perfect age to teach it. Really, really great. I've recently been reading a book by Ian McGilchrist called The Master and His Emissary. I wondered if you were familiar with that, because he gets into so much about like how he feels the kind of battle between the hemispheres has influenced world history in the course of civilization, and that he feels that unfortunately the left brain is becoming so dominant that it's kind of strangling out the right brain with detrimental effects to world well-being, basically. I wondered if you were familiar with his work.
Yes, I bought his book early on, and it's an absolutely wonderful book. if any of the rest of you have a chance to dip into it.
What was the book again?
It's called The Master and His Emissary, and it has a subtitle that's longer, but Ian McGilchrist, it's Ian with an extra A, however you spell that, but Ian McGilchrist. There's a really cool animation as well on YouTube if you look up Right, Left Brain, RSA Animate. I've watched it. I can't tell you how many times. I just think it's amazing, and it's a really, truly fascinating book.
It is. It's a truly wonderful. Ian McGilchrist is so intelligent and so well trained and has such a marvelous reputation that that he has been actually an emissary for the right brain. He himself. The title means the missionary is the right brain, and the emissary is the left brain, which he regards, which Gilchrist regards as the servant, should be the servant of the right brain. And I tend to agree with that. And McGilchrist is awfully good at characterizing the left hemisphere, which can be a bully, which is a know-it-all, which I'm here to tell you from my own experience, when it doesn't know the answer to a question, it makes it up. It will not admit it doesn't know something. And the right hemisphere is over there without language, unable to respond, nudging you, giving you a sharp pain in your stomach, however, to try to express its opinion. And it sees things. It sees. Now, McGilchrist is a big, thick book, many examples. At the very end of the book, he hedges a little bit. Perhaps you remember this, Lydia. He says, well, maybe I'm wrong about this. maybe I've been too enthusiastic about the right brain.
That was his left brain talking.
Yeah, right, exactly. His left brain bullying him. You've said all these terrible things about me. Now apologize. But it's a marvelous book, really, and the animation is priceless if you can find it. It's Ian McGilchrist, MC.
We can send
good.
it out.
We'll send
it.
it out. He's a Scotsman. A Scot, I should say.
I think Michael Brewer has a question from Tucson. He has a question, but we have to get to the chat as well. Michael.
I have a question. Well, I have a lot of questions, but I want to make Betty and everybody else aware. There's a book called Understanding and Healing Emotional Trauma, edited by Daniela Seif, S-I-E-F-F. And there's an interview in here by Alan Shore, who's a psychologist and psychotherapist. And he documents wonderfully that the right hemisphere in infant development is the first one online, starting to process big feelings and emotions and what it sees and what it feels. And a lot of that is all pre-conscious and we don't remember it, but it's where a lot of early trauma can be resident.
Oh, that's so interesting.
And he says the only way you can be in touch with it is if you're with a person who you're en rapport with, who just without speaking knows that it's okay that you are where you are, that you're traumatized the way you are, that there is hope. It's almost all done
nonverbal.
Without words, it's accepting you. And it's saying that all this emphasis that there is these days on what's called cognitive behavioral therapy is just trying to get the left brain to sit even more on the right brain. And this is a power thing, because these become huge industries, you know, cognitive behavioral therapy and things like that. And so I thank you for your work. It's been extraordinarily helpful to me. And what I just mentioned, Alan Shore in this book by Daniela Seif, I'll hold it up again.
Oh, I will absolutely pick it up and read it. Perhaps we're entering a period when the right hemisphere will not be so downgraded, so set aside, so criticized, and so on. We may be entering such a period, I hope, but that is a wonderful sign, Michael. That's a wonderful.
Jung said that there's something he called enantiodromia, things turning into their opposites. It's kind of a pendulum thing. And what we're going through has to turn into something different. It's catastrophic the way we are now.
It is catastrophic. You're right. It is, right. And education is heading towards catastrophe, I'm afraid.
Real quick.
Yeah, real quick, right.
Years ago, who, when we were taking that test,
Thank you, Michael.
right and left brain, really cocky little kid. He's out of college now, but he said when he got his data back, he was strong left brain, and he goes, you know, well, we rule the world, you know. And I went, anybody else offended by that? Yeah, and I went, but he truly, you know, I try to tell them when they choose groups, don't just choose your buddies. Don't just choose everybody that has a brain set like yours, or you won't grow. You know, try to choose some right brain, try to choose some left brain, try to choose some middle brain. But I'll never forget that. And I know exactly who it was, too. And he said,
and you're following him very closely.
Right. Someone else has a question.
Yes. I see maybe one of the questions here in chat. Maybe Anne, if you can share with your mom the questions that came up, and maybe she can choose the ones that, you know, we can focus on. But Alice Rose said, I remember in your book that you ask people to note when they have moved to the right side.
Say that again, Paula. I can't find it.
Yeah.
Alice Rose says, I remember in your book that you ask people to note when they have moved to the right side.
Well, I hope I didn't say it just that way, because the fact is that you notice after you have moved that you have been in the right hemisphere, that the moment of shifting to the right brain, you are not aware of, you should not be aware of, really. That would be the left brain saying, yeah, you moved, so now get back. You see, get back to me. So the moment of shifting, just as the moment of shifting to sleep from wakefulness, that moment of shifting to the right brain is out of awareness, out of verbal awareness. You know, afterwards.
Right.
Betty, Kat said, I believe accessing the right hemisphere helps my meditation.
Yes, meditation is definitely a right hemisphere state. There has been quite a lot of, or some research on that fact. And that illustrates how refreshing and restorative the right hemisphere state is, so that drawing can act as in the same way as meditation.
Yes. Betty, Sarah Morrison says, I think Betty said the dominant eye is linked to words. Would that mean the left side of the brain?
Yes.
If so, should one exercise the non-dominant side of the brain somehow in order to be more creative?
Yes, I believe that that is true. And whatever that exercise can be meditation, can be walking, can be drawing, can be whatever causes that shift to right hemisphere. The thing is, I think that until you experience that state, you don't know what it is. And is that the case, Sarah? That at conscious level, you are not aware of what right hemisphere feels like. Do you cook?
I think I have felt it, but I would love to be in it more often and develop it.
Yes.
So I'm doing more meditation and doing more things, especially during this period where I don't have to concentrate so much on achievement.
Yes, absolutely. The right hemisphere state, for whatever reason, is restorative and refreshing, and you just come out of it feeling good. Also, you can stay in it for long periods of time, as long as no one interrupts you. The minute someone says, how are you doing? How's the meditation going? You are out of it. But if you can draw all night and end up with a complicated drawing and feel not tired but refreshed. It's a very odd state in that way, and very restorative. So I recommend that, that sort of everyone find their bliss. It could be drawing, could be numerous other activities. We're all searching for that activity that makes us feel good and refreshes and doesn't drag us out, So good for you, Sarah. Just keep searching. Are you drawing at all?
I haven't been lately, but it is one of when I was younger, it was a passion of mine. And I'm disappointed in myself that I haven't kept it up because I think it's important.
Well, let me tell you, your left hemisphere does not want you to keep it up, to do it at all, ever, because it gets set aside. And it's such a wimp, it's afraid you won't come back. So this is what I recommend. You get out drawing paper, a pencil, an eraser, and something to draw, a cup or whatever, a plant, whatever. And you say to yourself, I'm not really going to draw. I'm just going to hold the pencil and I'm going to look at that plant. That's pretty interesting. Well, I'm not really going to draw. I'll just draw that one leaf. And once you draw that one leaf, you're into that state and you can stay there as long as no one interrupts you. So it's under your control. And I would get back to drawing. I really would.
Thank you.
Betty, one of the questions here, and it says, we are a bit confused. Is the dominant eye determined by the one that has the best sight, or determined by which brain hemisphere is most active, or something else?
No, it definitely is which brain half is controlling the eye. There's quite a lot of research that shows that for 64% of us that the left brain has the most control of the right eye. It's pretty clear.
So basically all of us that are 65% of the population that are right eye dominant means that we are basically always in our left brain.
I hope not. You know, which brain have, we all have those periods where we have anxiety or whatever, and we can't get out of the left brain, which goes on and on telling us how bad we are and how lazy and how useless and so on and so on. But one has to learn to control one's own brain. That's essential. And you can do that in just the kind of simple ways that I've described. Take a piece of paper and a pencil, look at something, say you're not going to draw, but you'll just draw that one leaf, and soon you will be able to enter that state. Now, the other thing is to take advantage of the power of the right brain. I'm trying to think now just how that goes. But you have a problem. You need to look at it, what we call looking at. I have to look at this problem. So you must be off by yourself. Conversation doesn't work. You must be off it yourself. And you deliberately ask yourself to look at the aspects of this problem, to look at it. Now, that's going to mean a different thing for each of us, probably. But it is a willful controlling of one's own brain. When you have that record going, often how terrible things are, the left brain can be such a pain in the neck, you know. I shouldn't be saying, I have to apologize to my own left brain. I'm insulting it and I need it. I'm using it right now. We have to bring the brain under control. That's the thing. And we know now there are ways to do that. Drugs aren't a good idea. There are ways to do that. And I think in time we will begin to exercise calling on the right hemisphere for the power of its perceptual ability, to get it to weigh in. What do you think? Almost to think of your own brain as two different people. What do you think? If you can conceive that.
I think that just talking about this, I'm starting to realize that I have two different brains. I mean, you know, and it's,
yes.
And just the way you're talking about it has helped me understand it better. It's like,
oh, good.
Yeah.
Good. I mean, you know, it's a little kooky, let's face it, to talk about your own brain this way. But one must be in charge of one's own brain. Otherwise, it can wreck you. It has wrecked a lot of people, the brain. So one must take charge. That's the hard part, I think. Do any of you have any response to that? You're doing it, I know. I know you are.
I've got a response if I can.
Yes, please. Yes.
So I think I've tried to put on my camera again. I don't know if it's gone on. I think when you started talking about restorative, it clearly illustrated the difference between the hemispheres. The minute you are engaged in an activity that provides some sort of equilibrium or some balance or some sense of restoring some balance, it does show a shift in your activities, or even if it's a mental shift in maybe the way you think about, oh no, I can't do that, opposed to doing it and realizing that you actually energized through the process. If that makes sense, it's the energizing through the process rather that is restorative, where the other side of it, the flip side of it, is the anguishing, which actually just drains you instead.
Yes.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Yes, I think it requires, if I can say this, this managing aspect, that it requires some visualizing, because that's what the right hemisphere does. Mm. If you stick only to words, to language, the left brain will never let go. So that simply by bringing imaging into the picture, so to speak, you will have activated the right brain, despite the left brain's objection. Now, some of you may have more compatible brains than I hope so. If that's the case, that's very fortunate. But I think most of us are not encouraged to image and to visualize. Is that the case? That this is something, you know, in school it's language, 3 hours and so on.
Can I come in?
Yes, please.
I taught design for 40 years. To
Hi,
design.
Buzz.
Hi, Paula. How are you? Beats. I taught designers for teaching design, and design they thought was just making logos and doing all this stuff in typography. But no, it's about thinking and getting into that, into the depth of thinking using both hemispheres. And I've used your book. I've given away more books than I have.
Thank you.
And the thing is, they can work together, and that's you know, with Sir Kenneth Robinson, his book The Element, that's the zone. You know, so how do you get into that zone? It's obviously practice to do it, but an example of the both working back and forth is the difference between empathy and sympathy. Now, empathy is where it comes from. This is the
yes,
up
right. I see that.
Okay, those two, and sympathy is you speak or you act or you do something based on empathy.
Yes, right. That's a really good illustration, because we all know what those two things feel like.
Exactly. And what it doesn't feel like.
And what it doesn't feel like, right. Exactly. Right. This may be a sort of voyage that people must embark on their own, with some instruction such as we've just heard. Think of it this way, as empathy and sympathy, the difference between those two things. Well, that provides an illustration of the difference. But in a way, it's a kind of thing that you embark on your own, because we're not being taught how to do this.
No, we're not.
We're not. No.
Well, the thing is that the beauty of it is that once you start to utilize that, because I was teaching innovation, entrepreneurship and stuff like that to people who were business school students, and they're all left brain.
Yes.
And, you know, and they get into the class and I start throwing things at them, put them in places that, like you said, very uncomfortable places.
Yes.
They don't know what to do. They're just completely, you know, fish out of water. And the thing is that once they do start to get it, it opens up more doors than they ever could imagine.
True. Yes.
You wouldn't believe what I'm doing, because when you want to create something, because creativity lives in that side of the brain, to be creative and innovative is making something that doesn't exist.
Yes.
And so how can you use the data thing to make it appear when it doesn't? And so to come up with creative ideas, I think that, you know, the drawing is a great exercise. Your drawings is a great exercise to say you can do it.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Very, very good.
One thing I noticed I first started taking drawing lessons is that people would come into our classroom and they would look around and say, "What are you doing in here?" And we would say, "Drawing." And they wouldn't like that. They would want to just go directly into painting. And then, of course, later on, when you would be in the painting class with them, they couldn't understand why they couldn't achieve what they were trying to create, because they hadn't understood the basic fundamentals of drawing. Now, drawing is, even though it is very creative, it is basically very structural in terms of
Yes.
putting your thoughts in order and to get the creation to actually work. There are, like you were saying, there are a lot of understanding light, edges, proportion,
Yes.
those things that are, some people find difficult, but yet they're essential to actually being creative, to let go and release yourself.
Well, yeah, you know, but we all learned how to read before any of us ever tried writing a poem or something. There are basic skills of everything, rock bottom basic skills. And I believe that they should come first and that they should be taught. And as it is now in many art classes, students are thrown into, given some problem in painting that is totally beyond what they are capable of doing because they have no knowledge of the field. You know, we accept this in today's modern art, but it's for ordinary people and for great artists. That's a different thing. I'm not talking about Jackson Pollock or someone like that, but for ordinary people, it's usually best to learn the basics of the field that they're, and it's not difficult, doesn't take much time, but do learn them, I think. Do you agree, Diana?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. And then I noticed, like, even the ones that later on became abstract artists had the basic fundamentals in the first place.
Exactly. As Anne mentioned, Picasso, essentially, you know. Absolutely true. Good point.
Betty, do you see why I didn't want to have questions coming right away? Because they would have never seen the
But the questions are so wonderful.
You have been the most really generous with your time. I think Michael has raised his hand. He was so kind to raise the hand. Michael, are you still here?
I'm still here.
Did you have a question?
I wanted to make a comment and say how excited and grateful I am that Betty said we have to bring our brains under control. We need to be in charge of our own brain.
Yes.
And so it makes you think, who is the agent here? I am not my brain. I use my brain. And that's a wonderful experience for people to have, to know that they are something more than their physicality. I'll leave it there.
Yes, absolutely. Well said. And I do think that this is one of the most urgent imperatives today, that we all need to be able begin to take control of our own brains. It's mostly out of control, I'm telling you. We need to start taking control. And it sounds so dreary and boring, but it isn't. It's a great adventure. Yes, Michael.
And one way, paradoxically, one way we take control is by letting go.
True.
And maybe we can even teach the left brain to let go.
Yeah, the left brain is amenable to teaching. But poor thing, it's fearful. That's the problem, I think. It has anxiety that you'll get in trouble if you try something like this.
Learned that somewhere.
It comes from parents, I'm afraid. Don't you think?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, and society, every kind of
society,
culture
right.
is in the school, yeah.
Right, absolutely. Well, it's been a marvelous, I think we should have just talked the whole time. Much more interesting. Thank you very much for assembling. And
Betty, maybe we can do a part 2 of this interview next year. Hopefully 2020.
Yes, right. What a group you have here.
Yeah.
Marvelous.
Yes.
This is only part of the group, I know. No,
Although there are many questions in the chat, so maybe we can get those to Betty and she can respond by.
Don't, please don't.
Oh, sorry, Betty. Bye.
Please don't, because I will take each one seriously, and then I will write endlessly about it, and I'll never get anything done.
We'll just assemble again.
Please forgive me.
I'd love to read the questions, but please don't expect a full answer from me. I'd never be able to do that.
Betty, I think that is really wonderful. You actually can just say that, you know. Most people would just say, yes, I will get back to you, and they would not bother to even do that.
No, I know myself. I'll take each question and write a whole essay on it.
Betty, is it after you hit 90 that you decide to just say
94?
Well, but what is the limit when you actually say, I will not write you back, but I will read everything. Betty, you have been most generous with your time, and I think you have given us so much to think about. Should we just say maybe?
Thank you for setting this up, Paola, and thank you for all of you for attending and asking such interesting questions. It's really been great fun. Questions are the most fun of all.
Yeah,
incredible.
Thank you, Patty.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you, all of you.
Good luck. Thank you so
Very
much.
careful. The next 2 months are crucial. Wear your mask.
Right. Stay well. Happy
Thank
holidays.
you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Paula.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Great. Great.
Betty, it's been this incredible honor to spend 2 hours in your company. You've been most generous with your time. And
it's lovely for me. Thank you.
Let's hope we can do part 2 in the next year, when hopefully that vibration will be different in the world.
Mm-hmm.
My time is limited. I'm 94 years old.
Young, 94 young.
94 young. Exactly. Thank you.
Thanks, Paula.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Oh, there's been no way.
Amazing.